My daughter stood in my workshop, the workshop my father built with his own hands in 1952, and told me it was time to sell it. She said this while her husband took photos of the equipment with his phone, calculating resale values like I wasn't even in the room. "Dad, you're 69 years old," Laura said, her voice dripping with that fake concern I'd been hearing for months. "You can't keep running this business. Your hands shake. You get tired. Someone's going to get hurt, and then what? A lawsuit could take everything." I looked down at my hands. They were scarred from 50 years of metalwork, stained with oil that never quite washes out. And yes, they trembled slightly. Not from age. From rage I was trying to control. "This workshop has been in the Morrison family for 72 years, I said quietly. "Your grandfather built it. I've run it for 50 years. It's not for sale." Laura's husband, Derek, finally looked up from his phone. "George, be reasonable. The property alone is worth $850,000. The equipment, maybe another $200,000. That's over $1 million just sitting here while you play around fixing lawnmowers for your buddies." Playing around. 50 years of custom metalwork, of building parts that kept local farms running, of teaching apprentices a dying craft. Playing around. "Get out of my workshop," I said. "Dad," Laura started. I said, "Get out." They left. But I knew it wasn't over, and I knew exactly what they were planning. Because 2 weeks ago, I'd found something in my office that changed everything. Something that showed me exactly how long my daughter had been circling like a vulture, waiting for me to become weak enough to pick apart. "Tomorrow is my 70th birthday party." Laura insisted on throwing it at the community center, said she invited 120 people, said it would be a celebration of my life and legacy. What she doesn't know is that I've invited someone special, my lawyer, and he's bringing documents that are going to teach my daughter the most expensive lesson of her life. But to understand how we got here, to understand how a man's own daughter can look at him and see nothing but dollar signs, I need to take you back. Back to when I was young and stupid enough to believe that blood meant something. My name is George Morrison. I'm 69 years old. And this is the story of how I learned that the workshop my father built wasn't just a business. It was a test. And my daughter failed it. I was born in 1955 in the small town of Riverside, Michigan. My father, James Morrison, was a welder who came back from Korea with skills and ambition. In 1952, he bought a half-acre lot on the edge of town and built a metal workshop with his own hands. Morrison's Custom Metal Works. That building, 40 feet by 60 feet of corrugated steel and concrete, became the center of my entire childhood. My earliest memories are the smell of hot metal and machine oil, the sound of my father's welding torch hissing as he worked, the way the sparks would dance in the dark workshop like fireflies. I'd sit on an overturned bucket in the corner, watching him transform raw steel into parts that local farmers needed. Gates for properties, custom tools that you couldn't buy in any store. "George," he'd say without looking up from his work, "hand me the 3/8 wrench." I'd scramble to the tool wall, find the right wrench, run it over to him. He'd take it without a word of thanks. Didn't need to. The fact that he let me be there, let me learn, that was thanks enough. My father wasn't a warm man, never hugged me, never said, "I love you." But he taught me everything. How to read metal, how to know by the color of heated steel exactly what temperature it had reached, how to respect tools, how to keep your word when you gave a customer a deadline. "A Morrison doesn't make excuses," he'd say. "A Morrison delivers what he promises." I started working in the shop when I was 12 years old. After school, weekends, summers. While other kids played baseball, I learned to operate a lathe. While they went to dances, I learned to TIG weld. By the time I was 16, I could build anything my father could build. In 1973, when I was 18, my father had his first heart attack. He survived, but it changed him, made him slower, more careful. He couldn't work the long hours anymore. "George," he said one night over dinner, my mother sitting silent and worried beside him, "I need you to take over the shop." "I was thinking about college," I said. I'd gotten accepted to Michigan State, had a partial scholarship, was going to study engineering. My father stared at me for a long moment. "College won't teach you what I've taught you. College won't teach you how to look a farmer in the eye and promise him you'll fix his combine before harvest, then work 20 hours straight to keep that promise. The shop needs you. The family needs you." I was 18 years old. What did I know? I turned down Michigan State. I stayed in Riverside. I took over Morrison's Custom Metalworks. My father died in 1975. Second heart attack, massive, killed him instantly in the workshop while he was grinding down a weld. I found him there at 6 a.m. when I came to open up. He was 52 years old. At his funeral, over 200 people showed up. Farmers, factory owners, people whose businesses depended on the custom parts my father made. Old man Henderson, who ran the grain elevator, put his hand on my shoulder. "Your father saved my business 3 times, he said. "When equipment broke and the manufacturer said the part would take 6 weeks, your father would have it made in 6 hours. He was one of a kind." "I'll try to be half the man he was," I told him. "You already are, son. He told me so." That was the first time I cried at the funeral. My father had never told me he was proud of me, but he'd told Henderson. I threw myself into the work, built Morrison's reputation even bigger than my father had. I specialized in custom agricultural parts, the things that big manufacturers wouldn't make because the orders were too small. A farmer's combine breaks down in the middle of harvest. He can't wait 6 weeks for a part. He needs it now. That's where Morrison's came in. Word spread. Within 5 years, I had customers from 3 counties. Within 10 years, I was getting calls from all over Michigan. The shop that my father built with his hands became something more. An institution, a lifeline for small farmers who couldn't afford downtime. I met Catherine in 1979 at a county fair. She was 24, a teacher at Riverside Elementary, with red hair and green eyes and a laugh that made my chest hurt. I was 24, covered in grease stains I couldn't quite wash out, rough around the edges from years in the shop. "You're George Morrison," she said when I introduced myself. "My dad talks about you, says you're the only person in 3 counties who could fix his tractor transmission. Your dad is Bill Watson. Guilty. That transmission was a nightmare. Took me 3 days. He said you didn't charge him the full amount because he'd had a bad crop year." I shrugged. Didn't seem right to bankrupt a man over a transmission. She smiled. "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" We got married 8 months later. Small ceremony at the Methodist Church. Reception in the workshop because it was the only space big enough for all the people who wanted to celebrate with us. Catherine wore a simple white dress and work boots because the workshop floor was concrete and she was practical like that. "I'm marrying a man who smells like motor oil," she laughed as we danced to a radio playing in the corner. "My mother thinks I'm crazy." "Are you?" "Probably, but you're good oil. The kind that keeps machines running." We built our life together. She taught 3rd grade. I ran the shop. We bought a small house 3 blocks from the workshop, close enough that I could walk to work, close enough that Catherine could bring me lunch, close enough that it felt like home and work were part of the same thing. Laura was born in 1982. Catherine went into labor at 3 a.m. I drove her to the hospital doing 80 miles an hour down empty roads, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When they handed me my daughter, this tiny thing weighing barely 6 pounds, I made the same promise my father never made to me. "I'm going to tell you I love you," I whispered to her. "Every single day. You're never going to wonder. And I kept that promise. Every morning when I dropped her off at school. Every night when I tucked her in. Love you, Laura Bug. It became our thing. Laura grew up in the workshop the same way I had. But different. I never forced her to work. Never demanded she learn the trade. I wanted her to have choices my father never gave me. She'd come to the shop after school, do her homework in the office while I worked. Sometimes she'd watch me weld, fascinated by the sparks. Sometimes she'd help organize the parts bins. But mostly, she just kept me company. "Dad, why do you work so hard?" she asked once when she was 10. "Because people depend on me. Because when a farmer's equipment breaks down, he doesn't just lose time, he loses money. Sometimes he loses his whole crop. When I fix something fast, I'm not just fixing metal, I'm saving someone's livelihood. That's a lot of responsibility. That's what it means to be a Morrison." She seemed to understand, seemed to respect it. Laura was smart, straight A's through high school, got into University of Michigan with a partial scholarship. I paid the rest, worked extra hours, took on bigger projects, but I paid every tuition bill on time. My daughter was going to have the college education I never got. She graduated in 2004 with a business degree, got a job at a marketing firm in Detroit, started wearing expensive clothes and talking about brand optimization and market penetration. Things I didn't understand but was proud of anyway. Then she met Derek. He was a financial analyst, came from money, drove a car that cost more than I'd made in 5 years. When Laura brought him home for the first time in 2008, he looked at Riverside like it was a zoo. "So this is where you grew up," he said, looking around at our small town Main Street. "Quaint." That word, quaint. The word that meant lesser than. They got married in 2010. Big wedding in Detroit. Cost more than my house. Derek's parents paid for most of it, but Laura insisted I contribute. I did. Drained my savings account and contributed $15,000 because my daughter asked me to. At the wedding, drunk on expensive champagne, Derek's father cornered me. "So, George, what's your exit strategy for the business?" "Exit strategy? You can't run a workshop forever. What's your succession plan? Who takes over when you retire?" "I haven't thought about it." "You should. Laura tells me the property is worth almost $1 million. That's a nice nest egg if you liquidate." Liquidate. Like Morrison's was just an asset on a spreadsheet. Like 50 years of work was just something to cash out. After the wedding, Laura and Derek moved to a suburb outside Detroit. Expensive house, 2-car garage, the kind of neighborhood where everyone's lawn looked exactly the same. Laura got pregnant in 2012, had twin girls, Emma and Sophie, my granddaughters. I drove to Detroit once a month to visit. Catherine and I would stay in a hotel. Laura never offered her guest room, said it was under renovation permanently, and we'd spend a day with the twins. They were beautiful, smart, full of energy. But I noticed something. Laura never talked about her childhood, never mentioned growing up in Riverside. When the twins asked about Grandpa, she'd say I was retired, even though I was still running the shop 60 hours a week. "Why don't you tell them what I do?" I asked her once. "Dad, they're too young to understand. I told you about your grandfather's work when you were their age. Times are different now. It's not relevant to their lives. Not relevant. The craft that put her through college. The work that paid for her wedding. Not relevant." Catherine noticed too. On the drive home from one visit, she said, "Laura's ashamed of us." "Don't say that." "George, it's true. She doesn't want her Detroit friends knowing her father is a metal worker. She wants them to think we're something more. We are something. I built a business from nothing. I know, honey. But Laura doesn't see it that way anymore. Catherine died in 2019. Cancer. Fast and brutal. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. She was only 64 years old. Laura came home for the funeral. Stayed 3 days. Derek didn't come at all. Work emergency, Laura explained. The twins were 7 years old. They cried at their grandmother's funeral, and I held them. And I thought about all the times Catherine had wanted to visit Detroit, but Laura had been too busy. After Catherine's death, I threw myself back into work. What else was there? The house was empty. The bed was too big. Every room reminded me of her. But the workshop was the same. Metal didn't change. Work didn't betray you. Laura started calling more often after Catherine died. Once a week. Just checking on you, Dad. At first I was grateful. My daughter cared. My daughter was making an effort. Then the suggestions started. Dad, have you thought about selling the house? It's so big for one person. I'm comfortable here. But the maintenance, the upkeep, wouldn't a condo be easier? I like my house, Laura. I'm just worried about you, all alone in that big house. Then came the questions about the workshop. Dad, are you still working those long hours? At your age, shouldn't you be slowing down? I'm 68, not 88. I'm fine. But what if something happens? What if you get hurt? Do you have insurance? Of course I have insurance. I mean liability insurance. If someone gets hurt in your workshop, they could sue you for everything. It was constant. Every phone call, every visit. Concern wrapped around questions about my assets, about my retirement plans, about what would happen if something happened to me. 6 months ago, Laura and Derek made a special trip to Riverside. Said they wanted to talk about the future. We sat in my living room. Derek had a folder, an actual folder with documents. George, Derek began, and I hated that he called me George instead of Dad. Laura and I have been discussing your situation. You're approaching 70. You're alone. You're still working a physically demanding job. We're concerned. About what? About your safety. About your future. About what happens when you can't work anymore. Laura jumped in. Dad, we've done some research. The workshop property is worth about $850,000. The equipment, if sold properly, could get another $150,000 to $200,000. That's $1 million, Dad. If you sold now, you could retire comfortably, move to a nice senior community. Never worry about money again. I don't worry about money now. Derek pulled out papers. We found a great place. Riverside Senior Living. Beautiful apartments, social activities, meals included. You'd have friends your own age. I have friends. Dad, you have customers. It's not the same. I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. When had she become someone I didn't recognize? Laura, that workshop is your grandfather's legacy. It's my life's work. It's not for sale. But what happens when you die? She said it just like that. Flat. Clinical. The workshop dies with you. No one knows how to run it. The property sits there deteriorating. Eventually we have to sell it anyway, but for less money because it's been neglected. We, I repeated. You planning on inheriting it? I'm your only child, Dad. Of course I'll inherit it. And you'll sell it immediately. She didn't even have the grace to look ashamed. Dad, I have a life in Detroit. I can't move back to Riverside and run a metalworking shop. Be realistic. I'm being realistic. You're being greedy. Derek stood up. George, that's not fair. We're trying to help you make a smart financial decision while you're still capable of making one. While I'm still capable. There it was. The implication that my time was running out. That I was declining. They left that day with nothing. But I knew it wasn't over. 2 weeks after that visit, I was in the workshop office doing paperwork when I decided to check my file cabinet. Something had been nagging at me, a feeling that things weren't quite where I'd left them. I found it in the legal documents drawer, a paper I didn't remember seeing before, a life insurance policy, in my name, for $500,000. Beneficiary, Laura Morrison Palmer. I'd never taken out a life insurance policy, never signed anything. My hands were shaking as I called my insurance agent, Mike Peters. We'd known each other 30 years. Mike, do I have a life insurance policy with you? George. No, you don't. You looked into it years ago but decided against it. Why? Someone took out a policy in my name. Silence. Then, George, that's fraud. Are you sure? I'm looking at the papers right now. What company? I read him the company name. Let me call them. I'll get back to you. He called back an hour later. George, I checked. That company exists. That policy exists. But they have no record of you ever signing anything. Someone forged your signature. Can you find out who took out the policy? The person who filed the paperwork would be on their records. But George, if this is fraud, you need to call the police. I hung up, sat in my office, stared at that fake insurance policy. My daughter, my Laura bug, had forged my signature on a life insurance policy, had made herself the beneficiary, was waiting for me to die so she could collect $500,000. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to call her and scream. I wanted to understand how the little girl who used to sit in my workshop doing homework had become someone capable of this. Instead, I called my lawyer. Warren Hughes had been my lawyer for 25 years, handled Catherine's estate, did all my business contracts, was one of the few people in town I trusted completely. Warren, I need your help, and I need you to investigate something for me. Quietly, I told him everything, the pressure to sell, the sudden concern about my health, the forged insurance policy. Warren was quiet for a long time. George, do you understand what you're asking me to investigate? This is your daughter. I know, but I need to know the truth. All of it. All right. Give me 2 weeks. It took Warren 12 days. When he called me back, his voice was grave. George, can I come to the workshop? This isn't a phone conversation. He arrived an hour later with a briefcase full of documents. We sat in my office, the same office where my father had kept his records, where I'd kept mine for 50 years. George, what I found is bad. Very bad. He opened the briefcase, started pulling out papers. First, the life insurance. Laura took it out 18 months ago, right after Catherine died. She forged your signature. I have the original application, and I had a handwriting expert compare it to your real signature. It's a clear forgery. 18 months ago, I repeated. She started planning this before Catherine was even cold in the ground. There's more. Laura and Derek are in serious financial trouble. Their house is worth $750,000, but they owe $680,000 on the mortgage. They're 3 months behind on payments. Derek lost his job 8 months ago. Laura's salary can't cover their lifestyle. How much debt? Combined, credit cards, personal loans, the mortgage, approximately $280,000 in total debt. They're drowning, George. My stomach dropped. So they need me to die, or they need me to sell the workshop. Both would be ideal for them. If you die, they get the $500,000 life insurance. If you sell the workshop first, they think they'll inherit whatever you don't spend. And George, there's something else. He pulled out more papers. I pulled the property records for the workshop. Someone has been paying the property taxes. Not you. Someone else has been paying them for the last 3 years. Who? Laura. She's been paying your property taxes. And according to Michigan law, if someone pays property taxes on a piece of land for a certain period, they can claim adverse possession. She's building a legal case that she has an ownership interest in the property. I stared at him. She's trying to steal the workshop. Slowly. Legally. Yes. The rage that had been building for months crystallized into something cold and hard. Warren, I need you to do something for me. Laura is throwing me a birthday party next week. Community center. 120 people invited. I want you there, and I want you to bring every piece of evidence you found. Warren looked at me carefully. George, are you sure? This will destroy your relationship with your daughter. She destroyed it the day she forged my signature. I'm just making it public. The week leading up to my 70th birthday party was the longest of my life. I went through the motions, worked in the shop, fixed a broken combine header for Henderson's son, built a custom gate for the Johnsons, taught my apprentice, Marcus, a 22-year-old kid who actually wanted to learn the trade, how to properly anneal steel. Mr. Morrison, Marcus said on Friday afternoon, you seem distracted. Everything okay? I'm fine, Marcus. Just thinking about getting old. You're not old. You can outwork me any day. I smiled. Thanks, kid. But 70 is 70. My grandpa is 85 and he still runs his farm. Age is just a number. Your grandpa is a smart man. Saturday arrived. The day of my party. I put on my best jeans, the ones without oil stains, and a button-down shirt Catherine had bought me for our last anniversary. Drove to the community center in my 2010 Ford F-150 that had 230,000 miles and ran like a dream because I maintained it properly. The parking lot was full. Laura had gone all out. Balloons, a banner that said, Happy 70th birthday, George, tables set up everywhere. A buffet that must have cost a fortune. Laura and Derek were there early, playing host. Laura wore a designer dress. Derek wore a suit like he was at a corporate event, not a birthday party in small-town Michigan. Dad! Laura hugged me. Happy birthday. Look at all these people who came. I looked around. I recognized most of them. Customers, neighbors, people I'd known for decades. Henderson, the Johnsons, Mike Peters from the insurance agency. Half the town had showed up, and there, in the back corner, was Warren Hughes, briefcase in hand. He gave me a small nod. People wished me happy birthday. Shook my hand, told stories about times I'd helped them. Henderson's son told the room about the time I'd fixed his combine at 2 a.m. during harvest, so he didn't lose his crop. George Morrison doesn't just fix metal, he said. He saves livelihoods. Everyone clapped. Laura clapped too, smiling, but I saw her checking her watch. She was waiting for something. The food was served. People ate and talked and laughed. It felt like a real celebration, like people genuinely cared about me. And they did. These were my people, my community. Then, after the cake was cut and served, Laura stood up, tapped her glass with a fork. The room went quiet. Everyone, can I have your attention, please? Her voice was loud, confident. I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate my dad's 70th birthday. 70 is a big milestone. It's a time to reflect on life, on accomplishments, on legacy. She walked over to me, put her hand on my shoulder. I sat very still. My dad has been the backbone of this community for 50 years. Morrison's Custom Metalworks has been here since my grandfather built it in 1952. 3 generations of Morrisons have worked in that shop. It's an incredible legacy. People nodded, murmured agreement. But, Laura continued, and her voice got softer, more serious. We also have to acknowledge reality. Dad is 70 years old now. He works too hard. His hands shake. He gets tired. And Derek and I have been worried about him. I saw Derek stand up, holding a folder. Same folder from 2 weeks ago. We've noticed some concerning things, Laura said. Unpaid bills, confusion about dates. Last week, Dad called me twice about the same conversation. That was a lie, a complete lie. But people were starting to look at me with concern. And so, Derek and I have made a decision. We think it's time for Dad to retire. Time to sell the workshop while he can still enjoy the proceeds. Time to move into somewhere safe and comfortable where he won't have to worry about maintaining equipment or meeting deadlines or any of that stress. She pulled out a brochure. Riverside Senior Living. The same one they'd shown me 2 weeks ago. We've already toured this facility. It's beautiful. Dad would have his own apartment, meals prepared, activities, medical care on site, everything he needs. Derek stepped forward. And the workshop property and equipment, if sold properly, would provide more than enough for George to live comfortably there for the rest of his life. We've already spoken to several interested buyers. The room was dead silent. People were staring at me, some with pity, some with shock. I saw Henderson's face getting red. Laura bent down, her voice dropping to just loud enough for the room to hear. Dad, we know this is hard. Change is always hard. But Derek and I love you. We want what's best for you. And we've talked to a lawyer. We can help you manage all this. We can be your power of attorney, help you make these difficult decisions. Power of attorney. There it was. The end game. Get me declared incompetent, take control of everything, sell the workshop, collect the life insurance when I inevitably died, broken and alone in a nursing home. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and I saw a stranger. Laura, I said quietly, before we talk about my future, I think we need to talk about something else. Dad, this isn't the time. Warren, I called out. Would you join us, please? My lawyer walked through the crowd, briefcase in hand. People parted for him. He set the briefcase on the table in front of Laura with a heavy thunk that echoed in the silent room. Everyone, I said, standing up slowly. My knees hurt. My back hurt. But my mind was clear as crystal. This is Warren Hughes. He's been my lawyer for 25 years. Warren, would you mind showing everyone what you found when I asked you to investigate my daughter? Laura's face went pale. Dad, what are you talking about? Warren opened his briefcase, pulled out documents. Laura Morrison Palmer, he began in his courtroom voice. 18 months ago, you took out a life insurance policy in your father's name. $500,000, with you as the sole beneficiary. Do you remember that? That was just, we thought Dad should have life insurance. Did your father authorize this policy? We discussed it. Did he sign the application? Silence. Warren pulled out more papers. This is the original application. This is your father's real signature from other documents. A handwriting expert has certified that the signature on the life insurance application is a forgery. Laura, you forged your father's signature. Gasps around the room. Henderson stood up. She did what? There's more, Warren continued. Laura and Derek are $280,000 in debt. They're 3 months behind on their mortgage. Derek lost his job 8 months ago. They're facing foreclosure. Derek's face was red. That's private financial information. And you've been paying George's property taxes for 3 years, Warren said, pulling out more documents. Building a case for adverse possession, trying to establish a legal claim to property you don't own. I watched Laura's face, watched the panic, watched her looking for an exit that didn't exist. So let me make something clear to everyone here, I said, my voice steady. My hands shake because I've been working with metal for 50 years. I get tired because I work 60-hour weeks at age 69. I am not confused. I am not declining. I am perfectly capable of managing my own life and my own business. I turned to Laura. You want to know about unpaid bills? I pay everything online. You want to know about that phone conversation I supposedly repeated? That never happened. You made it up. Just like you made up concern about my safety. Just like you forged my signature on that insurance policy. Dad, you don't understand. We're in trouble. We need help. You need my money. There's a difference. Derek stepped forward, his voice aggressive. George, you're being unreasonable. We're trying to help you. By stealing from me, by forging documents, by planning to have me declared incompetent so you can take power of attorney and liquidate everything my father and I built. The room erupted, people shouting. Henderson was on his feet, his voice booming. Laura Morrison, your father fixed my equipment at 2 a.m. 3 weeks ago. Does that sound like a man who's declining? Mrs. Johnson stood up. George rebuilt my grain auger last month. Custom work. Took him 2 days. Perfect craftsmanship. He's as sharp as he's ever been. Mike Peters, my insurance agent, stood up. I can confirm that policy was fraud. George never authorized it. I've already reported it to the State Insurance Commission. Laura was crying now. Dad, please. We're going to lose our house. We're going to lose everything. I thought if you sold the workshop, if you moved somewhere smaller, there'd be enough for all of us. So you forged my signature. You tried to steal my property. You planned to have me declared incompetent. All for money. We're desperate. Then you should have asked for help. You should have been honest. You should have treated me like a father instead of a bank account. Warren pulled out one more document. George asked me to prepare this. It's a restraining order. Laura and Derek, you are not to come to the workshop, George's home, or contact him, except through me. Any violation will result in criminal charges for the insurance fraud. Dad, no, you can't. I'm your daughter, and I'm your father. The father who worked extra hours to send you to college, who paid for your wedding, who drove to Detroit every month to see his granddaughters even though you never had time to visit me. The father you decided to betray the second you thought you could get away with it. Laura collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Derek was pale, shaking. People were standing now, some coming over to put their hands on my shoulder, supporting me, believing me. Henderson's voice cut through the noise. Laura, you should be ashamed. Your father is a good man, the best man in this town. And you tried to destroy him. We didn't. We wouldn't. You forged his signature, someone shouted. You tried to steal his property. You wanted him dead for the insurance. Laura and Derek pushed through the crowd and ran for the door. I heard their car start, heard tires squeal as they left the parking lot. The party that followed was strange. Some people left immediately, uncomfortable with what they'd witnessed, but most stayed. They gathered around me, told me they were proud of me for standing up for myself, told me stories about their own family conflicts, shared their own experiences with children who disappointed them. George, Henderson said, his hand on my shoulder, your father would be proud of you today. Would he? He taught you that a Morrison keeps his word and stands his ground. You did both. Later that night, alone in my house, I sat in my living room and looked at the photos on the wall. Laura as a baby, Laura on her first day of school, Laura at her college graduation, Laura at her wedding. When had I lost her? When had she stopped being the little girl who sat in my workshop doing homework and started being the woman who saw me as nothing but a future inheritance? My phone buzzed. A text from Warren. Laura and Derek tried to contact me. They want to talk. What do you want me to tell them? I stared at the phone for a long time. Then I typed back. Tell them I'll drop the restraining order if they agree to these terms. First, the forged insurance policy gets cancelled with prejudice, reported to authorities. Second, They stop paying my property taxes immediately. Third, they pay me back every dollar they've paid over 3 years. That's $18,000. They have 30 days or I press charges. Fourth, they have no contact with me for at least 1 year. After that year, if they want a relationship, they can try. But they start from zero. They earn my trust back. They don't get it automatically because we share DNA. Warren texted back 5 minutes later. They're asking if the twins can visit you. I thought about Emma and Sophie. 7 years old. Innocent. This wasn't their fault. I typed back. The twins can visit any time with a neutral third party present. Not Laura or Derek. Maybe Catherine's sister Beth. I won't punish my granddaughters for their parents' choices. I'll tell them. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow I'd go back to the workshop. Back to the work that had defined 3 generations of Morrisons. Back to fixing things that were broken. If only families were as easy to fix as metal. It's been 4 months since my 70th birthday party. 4 months since I stood in front of 120 people and exposed my daughter's betrayal. The restraining order was dropped after Laura and Derek agreed to my terms. They paid back the $18,000 in property taxes within 30 days. I have no idea where they got the money, and I don't care. The insurance policy was cancelled and reported to the State Insurance Commission. Laura is under investigation for insurance fraud. She might face criminal charges. Part of me hopes she does. Part of me hopes she doesn't. I'm still her father, even if she forgot how to be my daughter. The story spread through Riverside like wildfire. Small towns talk. Everyone knows what happened. Some people think I was too harsh. She's your daughter, George. Family is family. But most people support what I did. They've seen too many elderly people taken advantage of by their own children. They know I did the right thing. Business at the shop has actually increased. People want to support me. Want to show they respect what I did. Henderson brought his son and grandson by last week. George, I want you to teach Tommy here the basics of metalwork. He's 14. Thinks he might want to learn the trade. You sure? It's hard work. Not glamorous. Henderson looked at his grandson. Tommy, you see that man? That's George Morrison. 3 generations of Morrisons have run this shop. They've kept farms running. They've kept businesses going. They've built things that last. You want to learn from the best. This is him. Tommy started coming by after school. Reminds me of myself at that age. Quiet. Observant. Respectful of the tools. Maybe there'll be a 4th generation in this shop after all, even if his last name isn't Morrison. Marcus, my apprentice, asked me last week if I'd consider making him a partner. Mr. Morrison, I know you don't have anyone to leave this to, and I love this work. I want to learn everything you know. What if, maybe in a few years, we made this Marcus and Morrison Custom Metalworks? I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. How about Morrison and Marcus? Keep the Morrison name first. Honor the legacy. His face lit up. Really? You've earned it, kid. You show up every day. You do quality work. You respect the craft. That's what matters. Not DNA. Not blood. Respect. We shook hands on it. Didn't need lawyers or contracts. A Morrison's handshake is his word. The twins visited last month. Catherine's sister Beth brought them. Emma and Sophie ran into the workshop like they'd been there 100 times before, even though it was their first visit. Grandpa, what's this? Emma pointed at the lathe. That's a lathe. It spins metal so I can shape it. Can we try? When you're older. For now, how about I show you something your great-grandfather made? I pulled out a metal box from the shelf in my office. Inside were parts my father had crafted by hand. A perfectly machined gear, a decorative gate hinge with his initials stamped into it, a small metal horse he'd made for my 10th birthday. "Your great-grandfather made all of these," I told them. "Just with his hands and these tools. He built this whole workshop. And someday, when you're older, I'll teach you how to make things too, if you want to learn." Sophie picked up the metal horse, turned it over in her small hands. "Grandpa, why doesn't Mom talk about this place?" The question hit me harder than I expected. Beth put her hand on Sophie's shoulder, about to redirect the conversation, but I stopped her. "Sometimes people forget where they came from, sweetheart. They think new things are better than old things. They forget that old things have value. That's not your fault, and it doesn't change how much I love you." Emma looked around the workshop. "I think it's cool here. It smells like building things." "That's exactly what it smells like." They stayed for 2 hours. I showed them how to use a file properly, let them practice on scrap metal, showed them the wall where my father had marked my height every year as I grew up. The marks went from age 5 to age 18. Then they stopped, because that's when my father died. "Will you mark our heights, Grandpa?" Sophie asked. "Every time you visit," I promised. After Beth took them home, I stood in the workshop for a long time. The late afternoon sun was coming through the high windows, catching the metal dust in the air the same way it had when I was a boy watching my father work. Marcus came over from the welding station where he'd been practicing. "Mr. Morrison, those are good kids. They are, better than their parents deserve right now. You think Laura will ever apologize? Really apologize?" I thought about it. I don't know. Pride is a hard thing to swallow, and admitting you tried to steal from your own father, that's a bitter pill. What would you do if she did apologize? I'd listen. That's all I can promise. I'd listen. But trust? That's not something you give back easily once it's been broken. She'd have to earn it. Every single day. For years. Marcus nodded. My dad and I didn't talk for 3 years. He wanted me to be a lawyer like him. I wanted to work with my hands. He said I was wasting my potential. What happened? I kept doing what I loved. And eventually, he came to see me work. Watched me for a whole day. Didn't say anything. Just watched. Then at the end of the day, he said, "You're good at this. Better than I thought." That was his apology. Not words, just showing up and admitting he'd been wrong. You talk to him now. Every Sunday, he still doesn't understand why I chose this over law school. But he respects it. That's enough. I nodded. Respect is enough. It's everything, actually. That night, I made dinner for one. Spaghetti, the way Catherine used to make it. I ate at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared thousands of meals. The house was quiet, but it wasn't lonely. Not anymore. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Dad!" Laura's voice, small, broken. I didn't say anything, just waited. "Dad, I know I'm not supposed to call you, but I needed you to know something. Derek and I are getting divorced." He blamed everything on me. Said I was the one who came up with the insurance scheme. He's telling his family that I manipulated him into all of it. Still, I said nothing. And he's right. It was mostly my idea. Not all of it, but most of it. I convinced myself that we were helping you, that you didn't know what was best for you anymore, that the workshop was just a burden you were too stubborn to let go of. But I was lying to myself. I knew what I was doing was wrong. I just wanted the money more than I wanted to be honest. I heard her crying. The sound twisted something in my chest, but I didn't speak. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Sorry for what I did. Sorry for who I became. Mom would be so ashamed of me. Yes, I said quietly. She would be. Laura sobbed harder. I know she would. And I have to live with that. Every day, I have to look at my daughters and know that I tried to steal from their grandfather, that I forged his signature, that I wanted him to die so I could pay off my credit cards. Why are you calling me, Laura? Because I need you to know something else. I'm selling the house. Moving to a small apartment. I got a second job. I'm paying off every dollar of debt. And when I'm done, when I've cleaned up this mess, I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the person Mom thought I was. The person you raised me to be. I don't know if I can ever earn your forgiveness, but I'm going to try to earn my own. I closed my eyes. The twins visited last week. I know. Beth told me. She said you were wonderful with them. They're good kids, Laura. They deserve better than what you and Derek have been giving them. I know. That's why I'm changing. Not for you. For them. So they don't grow up ashamed of their mother. We sat in silence for a long moment. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Laura, I can't tell you I forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I can tell you this. I'm glad you're getting help. I'm glad you're facing what you did. And I'm glad the twins have you, fighting to be better. That's all I can give you right now. That's more than I deserve. Thank you, Dad. Don't call me again until the year is up. Those were the terms. I won't. I promise. She hung up. I sat at the kitchen table for an hour after that, staring at my phone. Catherine's voice echoed in my memory. Something she'd said years ago when Laura was a teenager and had lied about where she'd been one night. George, when our kids make mistakes, we have two choices. We can enable them by making excuses, or we can love them enough to let them face consequences. Real love sometimes looks like saying no. She'd been right then. She was right now. I got up, washed my dishes, and went to bed. Tomorrow I'd go to the workshop. Marcus and I were building a custom grain hopper for Henderson. Tommy would come by after school for his lesson. The lathe needed maintenance. There was always work to do. And that was fine. Work I understood. Work had rules. Work had standards. Work didn't betray you if you treated it with respect. I'm 70 years old now. Really 70. Not, I just turned 70 4 months ago, but a full year past that birthday party that changed everything. The workshop is busier than it's been in a decade. Morrison and Marcus officially became partners 6 months ago. We hung a new sign. Marcus tried to argue that it should just say Morrison's, but I insisted on both names. This isn't my shop anymore. It's ours. And when I'm gone, it'll be his. With a legal contract that says he can never sell it. He can pass it on to another craftsman he trains, but he can never liquidate it. The workshop will outlive all of us. Tommy Henderson is here 4 days a week now. The kid has talent. Real talent. Last week he built a custom bracket for his grandfather's baler, and old man Henderson said it was better than anything I could have made. It wasn't true, but it was close. Tommy might be the real 4th generation Morrison, even without the name. The house is still too big. Still too quiet. But Mrs. Patterson from next door comes over twice a week for dinner. We watch Jeopardy together and argue about the answers. She's become a good friend, not a replacement for Catherine. No one could replace Catherine, but a reminder that life doesn't end just because you're alone. I got a letter 2 weeks ago, Laura's handwriting. I stared at it for 3 days before opening it. Part of me wanted to throw it away. Part of me was terrified of what it might say. But I'd promised myself I'd listen when the year was up. So I opened it. Dear Dad, it's been 1 year. I don't know if you've been counting the days like I have, but I have. 365 days since I stood in front of everyone we know and had my betrayal exposed. 365 days since I lost the right to call myself your daughter. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I'm writing to tell you what I've done with this year. I sold the house in Detroit, took a $120,000 loss because we were so underwater on the mortgage. Derek and I are divorced. He moved to California. I don't think the twins will see him much. He sends a card on their birthdays with $50 inside, like money fixes absence. I moved to an apartment in Ferndale. 2 bedrooms. The twins and I share a bathroom. It's about the size of your workshop office. But it's ours, and it's paid for with money I earned, not money I stole or borrowed or expected to inherit. I have 2 jobs now. Marketing manager during the day, bookkeeping for small businesses at night after the twins go to bed. I work about 70 hours a week. The twins are in a good school. I pack their lunches. I help with homework. I go to every parent-teacher conference. I'm there. Really there. Not just physically present, but actually paying attention to who they are and what they need. I've paid off $112,000 in debt. I have $168,000 left. At my current pace, it'll take another 3 years. But I'll do it. Every dollar I owe, I'll repay. Not because anyone is making me. Because I need to prove to myself that I can. I've been seeing a therapist. Her name is Dr. Chen. She's helping me understand how I became someone capable of forging my own father's signature. How I convinced myself that your workshop was a burden instead of a legacy. How I valued money over relationships, over integrity, over you. I don't have good answers yet. Just insights that hurt to look at. Like how I was ashamed of where I came from. How I wanted my Detroit friends to think I was sophisticated. How I saw you as old-fashioned instead of principled. How I mistook your humility for weakness. Mom knew. Before she died, she told me I was becoming someone she didn't recognize. She said I was chasing things that didn't matter and ignoring things that did. I got angry at her. Told her she didn't understand the pressures of modern life. The cost of living in the suburbs. The expectations. She just looked at me with those sad eyes and said, "Laura, your father and I ate beans and rice for 3 years to save for a down payment on our house. We know about pressure. We know about sacrifice. What we don't understand is entitlement." I didn't speak to her for 2 months after that. 2 months of her cancer eating away at her, and I was too proud to apologize. She died before I could tell her she was right. I think about that every day. How I wasted those 2 months. How I can never get them back. How my last real conversation with my mother was me telling her she didn't understand my life. The twins ask about you constantly. Emma wants to learn welding. Sophie wants to learn how to use that lathe you showed them. They talk about the metal horse great-grandpa James made. About the marks on the wall measuring your height. About how the workshop smells like building things. Beth brings them to visit you once a month. They come home and tell me everything. Every detail. What you taught them. What you said. How you showed them pictures of me as a little girl sitting in that same workshop. It kills me that I can't be there. That I gave up the right to watch my father teach my daughters the way he taught me. But I accept it. This is the consequence of my choices. I'm not writing to ask if I can see you. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that I'm different now. Not perfect, not even close, but different. Better. Trying every day to be someone my daughters can be proud of. Someone Mom would have recognized. I don't know if you'll ever want to see me again. I don't know if I've earned it. But I needed you to know that I'm trying. That I hear you. That I finally understand what you meant when you said I should have asked for help instead of trying to steal. I love you, Dad. I never stopped loving you. I just forgot how to show it. Forgot that love is supposed to be about giving, not taking. About respect, not entitlement. about showing up, not showing off. Maybe someday I'll be able to tell you that in person. Maybe not. Either way, I'll keep trying to earn it. Your daughter, Laura P.S. Emma made this for you in art class. She wanted me to include it. Inside the envelope was a child's drawing. A workshop. A man with grey hair standing next to a little girl. Tools on the walls. The words, Grandpa's shop, written in careful letters at the top. I sat at my kitchen table and cried. Not because the letter changed anything. Not because I was ready to forgive her, but because my granddaughter had drawn me teaching her, and somewhere in that picture was the future of Morrison's custom metal works. I called Warren the next day. Warren, I need you to do something for me. I need you to draw up a trust for Emma and Sophie. Morrison and Marcus stays with Marcus until he retires or trains a successor. But I want the workshop property to eventually go to my granddaughters. If they want it. If they learn the trade. If they earn it. Not Laura. Not Laura. Not unless she proves herself over years, not months. And even then, only a small percentage. This isn't about punishing her. It's about protecting what my father built. Making sure it goes to people who will honor it, not liquidate it. I'll draw up the papers. I hung up and looked at Emma's drawing again. In the corner, she'd drawn a small heart with the initials E.M. inside the heart, carefully written. I love you, Grandpa. That night, I wrote a letter back. The first communication I'd had with Laura in a year. Laura, I received your letter. And Emma's drawing. I'm not ready to see you. I don't know when I will be. Trust is not rebuilt with words, only with years of consistent action. You understand that now? Good. But I want you to know something. The twins are welcome here any time. With Beth. With their friends. Someday, if you keep doing what you're doing, maybe with you. But that day isn't today. I'm proud of you for facing your debt, for working 2 jobs, for being present with your daughters. That's the hardest work there is. Harder than anything I've ever built in this shop. Keep going. Not for me, for yourself, for Emma and Sophie, for the person your mother believed you could be. You'll know when the time is right to visit. So will I. Until then, keep sending letters. I'll read them. I might not respond to all of them, but I'll read them. Your father, George Morrison P.S. Tell Emma I hung her drawing in my office, right next to the metal horse my father made for me. I'm 70 years old. I run a metal workshop that's been in my family for 3 generations. My daughter tried to steal it from me. My granddaughters are learning to weld. Life is complicated. Family is complicated. But metal? Metal is simple. You heat it. You shape it. You let it cool. You treat it with respect. It lasts forever. You abuse it, it breaks. People are like that too. You can't force them into shapes they're not meant to take. You can't heat them up and hammer them into what you want. All you can do is provide the tools, demonstrate the craft, and hope they choose to learn. Laura is learning. Slowly. Painfully. But she's learning. And me, I'm still here. Still working. Still teaching. Still standing. My name is George Morrison. And I'm living proof that when someone tries to take what you've built, you have 2 choices. You can let them, or you can stand up and fight for what matters. I chose to fight, and I'd make that choice again. Every single time. Because a Morrison keeps his word. A Morrison delivers what he promises. And a Morrison never ever backs down when it comes to protecting what 3 generations built with their own hands. That's the legacy. That's what endures. Not money, not property, but the knowledge that some things are worth fighting for, and the courage to actually fight. Did you like my story? Which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next story with love and respect.